both sides of the pond.
We now welcome in Max Torres of Ducks Digest. Max, our weekly guest, thank you for joining us once again before Husky Week.
Yeah, what's going on, Ryan? It is a very busy week in Eugene and around the Oregon football scene. Tons of stuff going on, both on the field and as we're about to talk about on the recruiting trail as well. Thanks for having me.
So let's just talk big picture. This week, it's obviously a big game, top 25 matchup. A lot of recruits are going to be in town. For Oregon's recruiting efforts, what does a week like this mean for the Ducks?
Yeah, I think that this week is crucial for Oregon. Not only do you have two massive home games coming up here with Washington this week and then Utah next week, but you have an opportunity to capitalize on the recruiting trail. I think we're going to talk about, there's a ton of really big names coming into town for this game. So it's an opportunity to obviously showcase the on-field product, but as well as everything behind the scenes, everything that Oregon has to offer, that Eugene has to offer, the fan base, the atmosphere. I think this is there's so much on the line right now for Oregon with regards to their Pac-12 title hopes, trying to make a playoff push, that you just want to showcase every aspect of this program. And Dan Lanning said it best earlier this week. Where things are at with recruiting, one of the best things they can do to help themselves is win on the field.
I've been hearing that there are some big-time recruits that are going to be in town this week. Can you break down some of the names that we're going to see at Autzen?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll start off with some of the heavy hitters in 23. Depending on when people listen to this, I'm probably going to have some more names added to our visitor list story. But in 23, I think the headliner right now is probably David Hicks. He's a 2023 defensive lineman, 5-star out of Katy, Texas. What makes this interesting, Ryan, is Hicks is committed to A&M. And if you've been watching college football lately, you know that things are not all sunshine and rainbows out in College Station right now. Texas A&M has signed some very high-profile defensive linemen, in the past recruiting cycle in 22. So Hicks has taken multiple visits out to Eugene, took a visit in the spring, took an official before he made his commitment. But he's one of those guys that they're bringing in that is committed to another school that they're trying to make that final push for. And Oregon's playing very, very well. So with Hicks, he's probably one of the, if not the most high-profile guy that I know of right now. That is coming to Oregon this weekend, and we know how much help Oregon needs on the defensive line. They already have a great haul in 23 right now, but Hicks would certainly be a guy that you'd love to add in. You also have running. Go for it, yeah.
For Hicks, the top 10 recruit in the 2023 class that's already committed somewhere else. How often do you see big-time recruits like that flip their commitment this late in their recruiting cycle?
Yeah, I think, it's not super uncommon at this stage. I think if it depends on the position a little bit. I think certainly with quarterback, that's a position that you see guys stick to a little bit more, down the stretch. Devin Brown is an example from last year. He's a high-profile quarterback out of Utah, was committed to USC for the longest time, and then flipped his commitment to Ohio State late. Because he just balled out senior season and on the camp circuit. So it kind of varies from position to position. But I think right now for Hicks specifically, like I talked about, things are kind of rocky with A&M. Oregon's playing well, and they're trying to, capitalize while they can because A&M is looking a little bit vulnerable, and Oregon keeps winning.
Let's get back to this game this weekend. Who are some of those other recruits alongside Hicks that we might see on the sideline at Autzen?
Yes, sir. All right. So some more names in 23 to monitor. You have running back Dante Dowdell out of Picayune, Mississippi. He's currently committed to Oregon, but he's landed some big offers of late, most notably Texas A&M, who we were just talking about. So a lot of these schools are kind of late to circle back on Dante, who Oregon has been high on from the jump. Carlos Loughlin has established him as a major priority in this 23 class, and he has been utterly dominant in his senior season. He's going to be playing on Friday before he catches a flight out to Eugene. So really big to get him back on campus and just kind of, continue recruiting him and show him, what he could potentially be at Oregon. And then staying in the state of Mississippi, you have defensive lineman Caleb Bryant, who looks like he's going to be making that trip alongside Dante. He's out of Vicksburg, Mississippi, 6'3", 250 pounds, a former Utah commit. Like we said earlier, Oregon has a lot of guys along that defensive line already in the fold, but maybe you want to add another guy like Bryant to your front just to solidify things a little bit. One of the more interesting names here in 23, Ryan, is cornerback Cole Martin. He's committed to Oregon. I think he was actually the first commit for Dan Lanning in this 2023 recruiting class popping on New Year's Day. But why this is important and interesting is because Louisville has actually made a very strong push late in this recruitment. They've gotten Martin on campus multiple times for a visit. And I think especially with Demetrius Martin being his dad and coaching at Oregon, I think some fans are kind of wondering, is there really that much to worry about with this one? How much of a chance do they really have with the coaching connection at Oregon? And I think that Louisville really does feel like they have a legitimate chance here to flip him. I'm not saying that he's going to flip, but they're certainly in the mix here, obviously, down the line. And I think he is a super important recruit for Oregon to hang on to because of how the secondary has been playing this year. Christian Gonzalez is probably going to be going to the NFL after this year, it looks like. So they need to shore up the cornerback spot, the secondary. But those are some of the big names in 23. And there were a couple that we could hit on real quick in 24, if that's cool with you, Ryan.
Let's do it.
All right, awesome. So two of the bigger names in 2024, I actually got to check in with one of them, Jordan Anderson, a wide receiver out of Long Beach, Milliken, out here in my neck of the woods in Southern California. He's going to be in Eugene this weekend, and he is an absolute stud playmaker. He loves the Ducks, recently placed them in his top 11, loves Junior Adams, loves what he's seeing from the offense this year in Eugene. He's also been a frequent visitor of USC. So as you would expect, Lincoln Riley and his coaching staff are doing what they can to keep him home. But I think that Oregon's in an awesome spot here. This is a huge name in 24 that you want to get on campus from an offensive standpoint. And then on the defensive side of the ball, one of the biggest standout names in 24 is defensive lineman Elijah Rushing from Salponte Catholic in Tucson, Arizona. He's the number 2 player in Arizona behind only Dylan Raiola, the 2024 Ohio State Buckeyes quarterback commit. He's a dynamic edge rusher, can do a little bit of everything for you on the defensive line. Everyone's going after him. He's been to Oregon numerous times. The Ducks continue to establish that pipeline in Arizona, specifically along the defensive line with Michael Gardner and Amari Washington here in 23 committed to Oregon. So they're bringing in big names in 23 and in 24. And it really has the makings for a huge weekend on the recruiting trail in Eugene this weekend for the Ducks.
So, Max, I want to shift a little bit to Dan Lanning and his coaching philosophy because he this week sort of shucked off some rumors that he had mutual interest with Auburn. He had a very candid response saying that he doesn't want to leave Eugene. What does a response like that is very straightforward and very candid, not only to the fan base, but also to the recruits that he could potentially be bringing in, that I'm staying in Eugene, I'm recruiting you to be a Duck. What does that do to the recruiting efforts and the faith that some recruits might have in a coaching staff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it honestly doesn't hurt. Let's just start with the obvious, right? I think a lot of recruits, this rumor report just kind of came out last weekend, and I don't think a lot of people were putting a whole bunch of stock into it. Just journalistically, it was kind of weird the way it was spun. It was like, okay, this report is saying this, but we're the source. So it was just kind of a mess. So I think that, hopefully the recruits were able to see through that a little bit. But for Dan Lanning to, outright, shoot the rumors down more or less like he did was something that is really good for recruits to hear because they haven't gotten that from previous Oregon staffs like Mario Cristobal, like Willie Taggart before they bolted for other jobs. So for Lanning to, reassure some of these recruits, indirectly, obviously, he wasn't speaking to them when he answered that question. I think it's only going to help them, for the long-term future, especially if they're a 23 guy. They want to know that their coach is going to be there for the long term, and they have, they don't have to fend off William Jewell College too hard for Dan Lanning here in the coaching carousel, like they did with, Florida State and Miami. So I think overall it's definitely a good thing for recruits to hear, and I think that you always want to be able to sell stability, and that's kind of what Lanning was going for in part with that answer.
Max Torres of Ducks Digest joining us in the Oregon Man Clinics hotline. Max, in your opinion, what does Oregon need to get done before signing day for you to feel like that they've rounded out this recruiting class?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think for Oregon between now and signing day, one of the biggest things really above all else is you want to keep these guys that are committed in the fold. You don't want to, you kind of want to be able to fend off some of these late pushes like I talked about with Cole Martin. There was some smoke about a Dante Moore crystal ball prediction in Michigan State. I'm not really buying too much or, investing too much in that stock. Michigan State's not doing well. They were never really a huge threat for him. It was Michigan and Notre Dame. Kenny Dillingham and the Oregon offense are just absolutely balling. So it's a good situation for him in Eugene. So I think that you want to keep those guys that are committed in the fold above all else. And then like we're seeing them do this weekend, and I know next weekend as well with Utah, they're going to be bringing in some big names in the 23 class and beyond, and some guys that are maybe committed to other schools that they want to circle back on and say, hey, give us one more look. This is the on-field product. We're really making a push here, and we're trying to build a special class. So I think that I don't know if they're going to have all their needs addressed by the time the early signing period comes around, but they can certainly help themselves out. You want to see a little bit more at linebacker, I think, in particular in this 23 class. And then I think that they're still looking to maybe add one more tailback. Jaden Lamar is a name to watch, the 2023 Notre Dame commit out of Lake Stevens, Washington. I think he's still getting recruited pretty heavily by Oregon, and he was really high on Oregon before he committed to the Irish. So that's kind of what I think they need to do is keep those guys in the fold and still make that push for some of those guys that maybe aren't as likely to join, or they maybe are a little bit of, you take your home run swing at them, but you still got to give it that best effort. So if they do that, I think they can put themselves in great position to finish this class with a bang and, try to address some of these needs that could be popping up following this season.
Max Torres of Ducks Digest, tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yes, sir. You can find me on Twitter. That's the best way to tap in with me, at @mtorresports. You can find all of my written work with a heavy recruiting focus on ducksdigest.com. You can find me and watch me on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Torres. I have all my podcasts over there and some press conferences with the players and the coaches every week. And then you can listen to me on the Ducks Dish podcast. Really been enjoying doing that lately. And that's the best place to find me.
Max, always appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Appreciate your time.